time management is not that all our time becomes occupied. That we cram everything in. That is not time management. Our real goal when it comes to time management in the Islamic paradigm as Muslims is we create free time. Our life shouldn't feel like a roller coaster. And if you look at today's world, we're living in an age of distraction and we're living in an age of speed. Oh Allah, I ask you for knowledge which is beneficial, which is going to benefit me today, to help me live a righteous life, and which is going to help me bring me closer to you and allow me to enter into Jannat al-Firdaus bighayri hisab. And Ya Allah, I ask you for goodly provision, rizq. And then after I've acquired all this knowledge, Ya Allah, allow me to do the deeds, fulfill the deeds, fulfill the rights of the people, fulfill the rights of the Quran. Anything that I do, Ya Allah, accept it so that I can present it in front of you on the Day of Judgment. It's always beneficial to just refresh our intentions. Why are we here? Okay, we're not here to change the world. We're here first and foremost to act upon this ayat which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu qu anfusakum wa ahlikum nara. O you who believe, protect yourselves. So I'm here to protect myself from the fire and then my family. And then inshallah later on we can start working on the entire ummah as well. But my main purpose here today is, Ya Allah, I need to protect myself from the fire. I need to understand what is it that I'm doing which is right, where am I going wrong, how can I improve myself. 3 asks which I always at the start of every session is, please make notes. If you don't have a notepad or a pen, please quickly grab yourself a notepad and paper, write it down, and then inshallah after the session please make an active effort to share it. Why? And it's not to change the world, it's because when we share and we look back at our notes, the things begin to make sense. Okay, we're able to internalize, dissect, ask questions to what we've heard today, and then inshallah that will help us bring it into our life. And then finally, applying. Okay, there's no point making notes and sharing if we're not applying it in our lives. That's absolutely crucial. When we're living in an age of it's just content after content. And I don't want these sessions to be where we go back and we think that, I've learned so much, it's absolutely amazing. It's stored in our memory and that's it. That's not enough. We really have to start bringing things into practice, because without that, it's not going to be beneficial. And if anything, it's going to be held against us when we die. When we are asked a question, you were given this opportunity, you were given this piece of amazing knowledge, you wrote it down, you even shared it and you thought about it, but why didn't you bring it into practice? And we're really going to be stuck over there. There's no returning. So inshallah, may Allah Ta'ala give us all the tawfiq and the ability to make amal with sincerity on whatever we learn today, inshallah. So the question which I fired on the group, the poll, it was to do with time management. So I think quite a few answers came back, and we can see the overwhelming response is people are very concerned about time management. If we could just take some answers by the chat, maybe. What do you understand by time management? Having structure and routine. Okay. Being organized and productive. Not wasting time. Getting everything done on the to-do list. Managing to fit everything in our daily routine. So I think, okay, mashallah. Yeah, so getting everything done on the to-do list, daily routine. So who dictates what's on my to-do list? How do I compile my to-do list? Where does it come from? I think that's an interesting question to ask ourselves as well. That, each morning, I've woken up and in my mind, or I've set some reminders for myself on the phone that I need to do so and so. So I think a really important question here to ask is, why am I doing this? How is it going to be beneficial for me, for my family, for the stakeholders, for the people around me? And what does my Allah think of this? There's a poem which I always like to share, which is just reminded me of, is if the Prophet came to visit you, I wonder what you'd do. So inshallah, I'll share it on the group as well. But it's really interesting because basically what the poem talks about is it would be interesting what you'd do if the Prophet came to visit you for a day or two. And then the poet goes into, if the Prophet rang the doorbell, would you run to the door with open arms to greet him? Or would you hold back whilst you quickly hid those books? Or would you quickly go and put a sheet over the big screen? Or would you quickly go and get changed? It would be really interesting to see what you would do if the Prophet came to visit you for a day or two. And then he goes on to talk about, would you invite him? Or if the Prophet said to you, I want to go see your friends, okay, would you go and take him to would you take him to the friends that you always spend time with? Or on this occasion, would you decide to maybe not visit that house? Or if you do go there, you're making dua, please don't open the door today. Not today. You don't know who's with me. So it'd be really interesting to know what a person would do if the Prophet came to visit you. So I think we could probably apply it over here on the to-do list. Our to-do list, if that to-do list was to be presented in front of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, okay, what would that to-do list look like? Would it still have all the things on there? The time management, again, very interesting. So in the society that we live in today, as a lot of people have said, so time management is about, what we think time management is about being productive, making sure my day is occupied. Those moments where I'm free, I need to be doing something useful. Okay, I can't be wasting time. So then the question is, what's the definition of wasting time? I mean, if I'm just sat in my room, not doing anything, is that wasting time? Okay, or I've gone for a walk. Is that wasting time? I mean, what does that mean? We're playing Lego with the kids. Is that wasting time? So what's the definition of wasting time? What do we feel is wasting time? So time management, the main goal of time management in our paradigm as Muslims, okay, it's not, time management is not that all our time becomes occupied. Now we cram everything in. That is not time management. Our real goal when it comes to time management in the Islamic paradigm as Muslims is we create free time. Okay, time management in our paradigm is we create free time, and in that time we use it for reflection. Okay, our life shouldn't feel like a roller coaster. And if you look at today's world, we're living in an age of two things. We're living in an age of distraction, and we're living in an age of speed. So when I talk about distraction, just reflecting back when I was young. So in those days, I think there was only like 4 TV channels. So when Channel 5 came along, it was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Then I remember Sky came along, and initially there were 99 channels. Half of them, didn't even work, but it was like, oh my God, 99 channels. And then came, all the other attractions, and then we had the World Wide Web, okay, where we were now trapped in this web. where we're just given so much content, so much information, so much news and alerts. So what's happened is we've seriously been distracted. I remember on one of the websites which we visited a few years ago. So there was a logo on there, and it said original PlayStation. Okay, so the original PlayStation when we were growing up, and there's a picture of a swing. Okay, that was our original PlayStation. And I remember when we were growing up, we used to spend a lot of time outdoors with friends, with the kids on the street. That was essentially the distraction we had. I mean, there was nothing to do at home. What are we going to do on those 3, 4 TV channels? Absolutely boring. Okay, so we would spend time outside, and we would have parents used to come and they used to watch us play football or play. We'd go around visiting people's houses. And again, there's only so much a person can watch on 4 channels. So we spent more time with each other, getting to know each other's parents, getting to know stories from the neighbors or the auntie that lives across the road. So because there was less distraction, we had more time to spend with people. But obviously society's changed now. And my view on this is the powers that be, they are aware, they know that if insan, okay, like if you look at the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala repeatedly tells us in the Quran to do tadabbur, okay, to reflect. When a person is able to reflect, he begins to see things clearly. Okay, you know, when the dust settles, the vision, the image, the road ahead, the path ahead becomes very clear. Why? Because the dust has settled. There's no distraction. Now, as long as you keep kicking up the dust, okay, as long as the air remains dusty and misty, you're not able to have that clear vision. Okay. So essentially what I'm saying is we're living now in an age of distraction where all these things have been introduced to stop people from thinking. The dust cannot settle. Okay, it's very hard for the dust to settle. So I can't see where I'm going. So I'm living in an age of distraction. I'm living in an age of speed, and everything has to be done quickly. You know, we're living in an age where the day starts and it ends, and we don't know what we did. You know, weeks go by, and when we think back, what did I do? We can't even remember. Why? Because it's constant distraction, you know, and everything's just going so fast. So the essence of time management, when we talk about time management, is that we should no longer care about speed. Okay, speed should not be the dictating factor in our lifestyle choices, that we have to do things quickly. I mean, a classic example is, for example, the YouTube videos now as well. And I noticed this for myself. When you're watching YouTube, you no longer listen to it at the playback speed of ×1. You know, we speed it at 1.25, 1.5, 2. You know, if there was probably more than 2, definitely people would be going even faster. Now, what happens is when you're living or when you're going so fast, you don't notice what's happening around you. I mean, how many times has there been where we've gone from A to B, we've gone so fast, and if someone asked you, "Oh, did you see, you know, so and so on the way?" Like, no, I was going too fast. So what happens over here when we go too fast? We don't absorb information. Okay, we're not able to reflect. We're not able to digest, internalize, and then bring it into action. And if I was to sort of relate this to another analogy, it would be, for example, when we eat food. So when we eat food, the food has to go in our mouth and we have to chew it, okay, to break it down. That helps the digestion process. Well, that's part of the digestion process, but it helps in the absorption process when the food goes down into the small intestine. So anyway, we would chew the food, then we swallow. Then it goes down the esophagus into the stomach. Now, what happens in the stomach? The food remains there for a few hours whilst the enzymes and all the the gastric juices they act on the food and your stomach. sort of churns the food round and it makes it even smaller. Why? Because it's preparing it, turning it into such a state that from there, when it goes into the small intestine, that's when all the nutrients are sucked out into the blood. Okay. So the nutrients are sucked out into the bloodstream, and then obviously that's where you get the benefit of the food. Okay, because it's able to travel around the body and give you energy, etc. Then whatever's left over comes out, right, through the large intestine, etc. So if the food goes in too quick, if you don't chew the food properly, and if you have an upset stomach, okay, what happens as the food goes in, it comes straight out. So that food is no longer of benefit. Okay, this is what information is like. So I'm talking about speed, digesting, reflecting. This is what information, when we're attending these classes or we've been going to madrasa and schools, etc. There's just so much information and it's going through so much speed. It's just going straight in and out, okay? Straight in and out. So we're not taking the actual benefit, the nutrients, the information, the wisdom, the spirituality from all these sessions that we're attending. Okay, it's too fast. So this is why when I say digestion in terms of sort of these classes or any other dars or classes that we attend is there needs to be writing down. That's part of the digestion process. Okay, there needs to be sharing. There needs to be reflection. Okay, so going back onto reflection, yeah, so we're living in an age of distraction when we no longer have the time to reflect. And society has gathered, like I said, the powers that be, they've realized that if insan is given the ability to think and reflect, because when we were created, we have this belief that we were created on fitra. Our nature is to incline towards good. Our nature is to incline to move towards, shift towards that there is a creator, to submission. Okay. But that will only come once the dust settles, when there's no distractions, we're able to reflect and think. So what am I saying is there's so many distractions that like I said, the powers that be know this, that they're keeping us constantly distracted. Okay, so we're not giving the free time to think, to question ourselves and see the light. We're not being given that opportunity by society. And secondly, our brains are functioning in such a way that we're constantly finding it, because this is how we were brought up in society, that you have to go to school, then there's evening classes, then there's weekend. You have to be on the go all the time. So this is what we need to snap out of. And if I was to give the biggest example of this, it would be Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam spent all those days, detached himself from the world, up in the cave. He was there for 40 days reflecting. Okay, now just imagine yourself sat on top of a mountain, looking over this vast city of Mecca. Okay, and there's all sorts happening. There's idol worship happening. There's markets. There's people. I'm not saying it's all negative, but the entire world is functioning. And here Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is thinking, like, who is my Rabb? What's my purpose over here? Okay. So what has Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam done? He's taken himself out of this society where there's distraction, where there's speed, there's all sorts, and he's just finding the time to just think and reflect what is going on. Okay. And then after 40 days, after all that reflection, eventually what happens? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends down Jibreel alayhi salam with Iqra. Okay, so we all know the story. So the greater goal of time management is we have to slow down and create free moments. So when the day ends, okay, we have time to think and reflect. The second thing is when the day ends, we have to have enough energy to be able to reflect. So alhamdulillah, we've sort of realized that, okay, yes, I need time to reflect, but we need to have enough energy so that we have the time to reflect. or we have to have enough energy that we have the time to sit down with our family. We have the time to sit down with our spouse and actually discuss something without the hustle and bustle of the world going through our mind, okay, or without the phone pinging. We need to here. We really need to disconnect and slow down. So we need to create free moments, and we need to choose a lifestyle and activities that allows us to have enough energy at the end of the day where we can actually do something productive. We hear from the shuyukh a lot about, doing muraqabah, etc., having those reflective moments at night. A person's so tired, he doesn't have time to sit in front of, sit down on the musalla and make dua. We're so tired, we don't have the energy to get up for tahajjud. Okay. Why? Because we've not managed our time properly. Okay. Because we're just in this constant rut of we have to be busy and doing something. Until I'm not tired, I can't sleep. I mean, this is another fallacy as well, that I need to do so much activity throughout the day that I need to be absolutely tired. So when my head hits the pillow, I'm asleep. Why? Because I need to energize so I can get up again and just start running. Okay, just running, and running. So that's the first thing. So we need to create free time. One strategy, very simple. It's sunnah. We see a lot. We hear about it in Spain and stuff. Siesta, kailula. Okay, so kailula essentially creates another day within the same day, because when you have that 15-20 minute power nap or that rest, what does it do? It refreshes. It energizes you, so then you can start doing things, or continue with your day. Now, another part of time management is another greater goal of time management is that we need to spend time doing things mindfully. Okay, so this is again linked to speed. So if we slow down, we will start doing things mindfully, with reflection, with thought. Why am I doing this? And why is this essential? It's because we will be asked about this on the Day of Judgment. Okay, we will be asked about the time that we spend, even in solitude, or the action that we're doing. What did you do? Why did you do it? How did you do it? Okay, absolutely crucial. So secondly, I think what I need to clarify over here is what is a good life? Okay, a good life in our paradigm is not a life that focuses on standard of living. Okay, I think there's two definitions here which I need to make very clear. A, what is quality of life? And B, what is standard of living? Okay, and what's a good life? So in the pursuit of happiness, in the pursuit of a good life, what a lot of us are doing is we're focusing on the standard of living. So what do I mean by standard of living? Standard of living is to gather wealth, it's to gather materialistic things to make your life easy, to make it comfortable, investing in new gadgets, buying clothes, decorating the house, buying anything which is going to make our life easy, and it's going to make us look good. It's going to make us feel good. Okay. So essentially, standard of living, more often than not, is linked to satisfying the cravings of the nafs. Okay. Satisfying those desires which aren't always beneficial. Okay. I want the latest thing. This is another thing that we have. I need to have the latest gadget, or I need to have the latest. My phone is perfectly fine. I have an iPhone 11, for example. It's perfectly fine. But there's so much distraction out there. I'm constantly being shown pictures of the new iPhone. I'm constantly being shown videos and reviews and people around me. If you remember in the last session that we had when we talked about the Net Promoter Score. So even the people have turned, without knowing, into a marketing agency for these big brands. And they're constantly showing me, check out my phone. Look what it's like. Now, all of a sudden, I'm feeling unhappy with what I have. So I need to go and buy a new phone. Okay. Because I think that's going to give me happiness. So that's standard of living. And we think by investing in standard of living, that's going to give us a good life. What we need to focus on is quality of life. Okay, so what's quality of life? So quality of life, this is linked to our ability to develop relationships. Okay, so what do I mean by that? It means that we personally, I am able to stay happy and I'm able to keep others happy. And this entire process becomes easy for me. How many times have we had where I'm trying to keep myself happy? You know, sometimes it's a real struggle. I'm trying to keep myself happy, okay? Or I'm trying to keep the other person happy. So when we work on relationships and when we work on quality of life, staying happy, making other people happy, becoming happy becomes easy. Okay. We find joy, happiness in the small, I'm not going to say things, okay, because if we asked a question, how many of us know how to keep our loved ones happy without spending a single penny? Now that's a real challenge for some people. I don't know how to make my spouse happy without spending anything. I don't know how to keep my kids happy without spending anything. Why? Because our entire focus has been on standard of living, on materialistic things. But what we're talking about is quality of life. It's we're talking about relationships. So if we can understand these two things, what we will start focusing on is reducing the effort of trying to live a happy life by acquiring things. I mean, that's if you look at it, that's the magic formula. Why don't I have free time? Why don't I have free time? It's because I'm too busy working. Why am I working so much? Because I need to have a good standard of living. What's my standard of living? I need to have a house bigger than my needs. I need to have a car or multiple cars which exceeds my needs. Okay. I need to have a phone which exceeds my needs. Well, what's the difference between needs and wants? Okay. Something you need is something which is essential to life. So in order to cover myself, I literally need a piece of cloth over my body. Okay. It has to be clean and you know, it has to feel good. It has to keep me warm. That's my need. What's my want? It needs to have a designer label. Okay. It needs to be flashy. So when people look at it, they comment and they say, wow, my need is to be able to get from A to B safely in a car where my family can sit comfortably. My want is it needs to be a certain brand, and it needs to have a certain rim size, and it needs to have certain luxuries inside. That's my want. That's my nafs. Okay. So when we start looking at food, okay, what's the purpose of food? The purpose of food is to be able to provide us with enough energy so I can continue with my day-to-day activities. Okay. That's essentially the purpose of food. Okay. That's my need. My want is it needs to taste really nice. It needs to be presented in such a way on a plate where I can take a picture and share it on Facebook and TikTok and Instagram. I need to be able to talk about it. I need to be able to tell people how much I spent. So linking back to time management, so I'm working so much because I'm constantly worried about fulfilling my wants and not my needs. Okay. I'm trying to make people happy who have got no relation to me or Allah. Okay. They're not going to help me get closer to Allah by me showing them these pictures. Um, and all of a sudden we find ourselves so busy. You know, we find ourselves so busy that we're not able to spend time on ourselves. We're not able to spend time on children. And if anything, our standard of living has become a barrier to us developing relationships. Why? A, because we're not spending enough time with them because we're too busy working and acquiring the money. B, if my son scratches that car which I just had polished, okay, or if he spills something on that carpet or that sofa which I bought for so much, it's going to cause big problems. So relationships here are breaking down. Why? Because we're giving materialistic things more value than people and relations. So the moment we start to value our personal belongings, the things, it becomes very hard. Okay. And it becomes hard to share. And again, this is what the world around is, one of the biggest industries which I absolutely I don't like, to put it nicely, is the marketing industry, because the marketing industry is constantly making us feel as if we don't have enough. We need better. This doesn't look good on you. I mean, we've heard of the idiom, right? Old is gold. So old is gold in the past worked wonders. The 21st century, old is gold, it doesn't apply. This century, this day and age, it's about need for speed. It's about new. It's about innovation. If it's not new, if it's not the latest, it's no good. So when we come into this mindset, what happens is those old parents no longer are appealing to us. Those old grandparents, we shun them. Because this is the mindset we're in. It has to be new. Everything has to be new. And if we link this to our Deen, subhanallah, innovation is not allowed. The good old ways. The Quran is simple, black and white, right? But because we're being fed all these flashing images and all these weird and wonderful colors, kids are no longer. I mean, they can no longer sit in front of a mushaf and just read the black and white text. Why? Because they need something colorful. They need something with pop-up pictures and images and sound. Okay, it's just innovation. So we need to revert back to old is gold, because that was what's going to bring simplicity into our life. And when we have simplicity, we no longer have to spend time outside working. And if we're not spending time there, then we have enough time to reflect and work on relationships. If we look at Deen, the whole essence of Deen is actually based around relationships, and it's not based on materialistic things. When can we see from the prophetic example when Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has stressed on the importance of acquiring wealth, on building big, on filling our houses with gadgets? It's not there. If anything, what we learn is Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has always talked about building relationships through sharing. The classic example, the Muhajir Makkah going to Medina. Okay, those people in Medina, the Ansar of Medina, they're happy to share. They may have had big houses, but when the time came to make a sacrifice and help someone, they were prepared to share their wealth, their houses, their cattle, their businesses, everything. If we look at, again, looking at religion, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, okay, this is to do with not only do I just believe in Allah, I have now got a relationship with Allah. When I say Muhammad Rasulullah, I now have a relationship with my Prophet. Okay, that is the essence of the kalima, that I have now a relationship with my Allah. I have a relationship with my Prophet, and such a relationship, I'm prepared to sacrifice my desires and everything that the world is preaching to what my Prophet wants. That's a relationship. When we pray namaz, when we pray salah, salah is about connecting with Allah. There needs to be a relationship between you and Allah. I'm talking to my Allah. If salah was purely based on materialistic, the standard of salah would be what? I'm wearing a beautiful dress, and I have a really nice shiny musalla. I've done wuzu with Zamzam. But if there's no spirit, and if we're not connecting with Allah in namaz, that salah is useless. So our entire deen is based on relationships. It's not based on materialistic things. So when we talk about relationships, let's go deeper here as well. So what do we mean by relationships? So if we're able to master our time management, why? Because the greater goal is to reflect and have and develop relationships to live a better quality life, then what we say is there's 5 dimensions of relationships. Okay. One is a relationship with yourself. And what does that mean? Can I sit down, have an internal dialogue, look at my intentions, question myself, what am I doing? And at the end of that process, when I stand up, I'm a better person. I'm happier. My intentions have been purified. I've identified where I've gone wrong. I'm able to pick out where my nafs has been tripping me up. This is a relationship that we need to have with ourselves. And this will only come when we are able to manage ourselves better in terms of time management, when we have the energy to do this. There's obviously lots of training that goes behind this, which we need, but that's the first dimension of the relationships we need to have, is a relationship with ourselves. Normally what happens is when a person sits down to reflect on himself and the dust begins to settle, we don't like what we see. So we quickly kick up the dust again and we say, let's go. Because we're not able to face into our own problems. We're not able to face into the mistakes that we've done. And until we do not have this personal relationship, we won't be able to fix ourselves, rectify ourselves. Okay, so that's the first relationship that we talk about. The second relationship that's crucial is relationship with your loved ones. Now, it's very easy to appear happy and win the hearts and minds of the public. But to be happy in your personal and private life, that's very difficult. Right? So the real question is, can we get a certificate from our spouse and children that, yes, Dad is a really happy, jolly person. He stays happy. He knows how to make us happy. He keeps everyone happy, and he does it with so much ease. If we're at work or we go out in the public domain, I'm sure we've had lots of Google reviews. We've had people coming up to us saying thank you. We've probably won awards and certificates from the workplace saying excellent customer service skills, or, happiest colleague of the year, right? But the real test is our loved ones. Are they able, can they go, again, going back to the NPS score that we discussed last week, would our spouse or our kids be happy to go onto Google now and give us a 5-star review? That, you know what, Dad, absolutely amazing, always happy, brings a smile. Whenever we're feeling down, he brings us right up. And we've never seen him upset. And if he is upset, it's for a genuine reason, but he picks himself up again. We're only able to do this is if we can have that internal dialogue, if we have the time and the energy. Okay. So having a relationship with ourselves, having a relationship with our loved ones. Okay. Then we expand the circle and we say, what's our relationship like with others? So it's people outside of our family circle, whether it's neighbors, people we see at work, people we see, in the masjid, etc. What's our relationship like over there? And then we have the fourth dimension is my relationship with Allah. What's that like? And finally, my relationship with my fitrat, the way Allah created me. Okay, so these are the 5 dimensions of the relationship that we talk about, inshallah, which we'll build upon in the coming sessions, inshallah. The greater goal of time management is to be able to live a life in which building relationships becomes easy. So this is probably where we need to go back and reflect on what are we doing? What do we understand by our list? Okay, what's our to-do list looking like? Do I have enough energy to sit down and reflect? Can I have that relationship? Can I have that personal self-talk? Because we're all here to change, and this is our intention. Where is it that I'm going wrong? And it's very easy to identify once the dust settles. Okay, so that's probably a piece of homework that may Allah give me the ability as well, that we have to do is understand what time management is. Go find the time to reflect, speak with our spouses, share, give each other the time. I mean, husbands need to make life easy for the wives, and vice versa. Let's give each other the space and time to go and reflect and do something, useful. Have that internal dialogue, look at the notes and come back and say, this is what I've discovered. This is what I need to do. This is how we're going to do it.